Hello, New York Giants fans, and welcome to the Valentine's Views podcast on a victory Monday for your New York Giants, their first victory of the 2024 NFL season. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Here to help me break down Sunday's game, as always, the day after games, is Big Blue Views Tony DelGenio. And Tony, we. We have a win to talk about, which it certainly didn't look like might happen after 11 seconds.
No, absolutely not. We'll take them when we can get them.
Yeah, it's I guess I want to start with, you go back to the offseason and Joe Shane talked about the Giants couldn't afford to start 0-3. They had to have a win. They go into yesterday as an underdog. Um, it just That win yesterday, what I wrote about was it offered this team hope. Um, it would have been so ugly Thursday night in MetLife Stadium against the Cowboys. It would have been so ugly if they had lost on Sunday. And today, I think we find ourselves in a vastly different place with the Giants.
Yeah, I think you start out 0-3 and you feel like the season's over. I mean, they say that even at 0-2, you're not going to make the playoffs most likely. But well, first of all, to be honest, I don't know how many people expected the Giants to make the playoffs anyway. But obviously, until you get a win, you you can't feel good about what you're doing, and you have to just ask questions about where the team is when you try three different teams and can't get a win against any of them. In retrospect, the first game of the season where they looked so terrible against Minnesota, that actually looks like it may be more a product of Minnesota than it was of the Giants. As bad as we thought the Giants played that day, and they did. I mean, Daniel Jones was terrible in that first game back, but Minnesota's defense is destroying other offenses. They beat the 49ers last week, and they held down CJ Stroud yesterday. I mean, that defense looks like it is for real. And so, maybe a little bit we could throw that first game out. It was last week's game, obviously, that should have been a win that they threw away with personnel decisions and poor defense. So yesterday, at least they got some good play on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. And I mean, let's just start with Malik Nabers. Let's just start there. I mean, this kid, this kid's a superstar. This kid changes everything. Um, I think the quote that I saw that Neighbors had said, what Daniel Jones tells him is, "I'm just going to throw it to you, and it's you or nobody." Jones trusts him enough to, the ball that he took away from Martin Emerson for the 28-yard catch. That's a ball that a quarterback doesn't throw to a normal wide receiver. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't throw it because that's a clear interception. Neighbors said he thought it was an interception when the ball was thrown, and he just made an aggressive play to go get it. But Malik Neighbors changes everything about the Giants passing attack. He changes Daniel Jones, for crying out loud. So it's just, the Giants, since Odell Beckham, haven't had a player like this. The kid is special.
And if only Daniel Jones could learn how to drop a deep ball into his arms instead of overthrowing him by 5 yards, he would have had 150 yards yesterday, at least.
Yeah, that we'll talk about Jones more later, but for now I want to focus on Neighbors. It's just the twisting touchdown catch he made in the back of the end zone. That's an incredibly high degree of difficulty catch. Brian Baldinger's talking about the 4th-and-1 first down on the jet sweep, which was just, Neighbors outrunning the defense around the edge. Um, the kid changes the offense in so many ways. It's just, there was debate and there will always be debate over whether he was better than Marvin Harrison and all of that. I think, but this kid transforms this offense, and absolutely, I don't think there's any question that the Giants made a good decision here to take him number 6, even though they passed on a quarterback to do it.
Well, I mean, he's got, last week's drop in Washington notwithstanding, he's got great hands. He's got great leaping ability. He's got tremendous body control and concentration, I think, and he's just unbelievable at the catch point. He gets open, but even when he's not open, he's got contested catches, and contested catches weren't really his calling card at LSU that much. But I think we're seeing now that he's just fine on contested catches in a different way than some good contested catch wide receivers are, who just kind of maybe out muscle defensive backs to get the ball. But he just out moves defensive backs, I think, to get the ball.
Yeah, the acrobatics, the body movement, but it's also grit and determination. He knew, on the ball he took away from Emerson, he knew what he was going to have to do to go get that ball. And I think Daniel Jones just saw one-on-one and said, more than likely, I'll throw this out there, and, more than likely Nabers is going to at least make sure it's incomplete, and he made a great play. And excuse me, Brian Daboll couldn't stop talking about the interception that Nabers broke up on the play where Jones' arm was hit. And that's just grit and determination and understanding what has to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. Dane Brugler of The Athletic, in his kind of mock draft, I think it was, before the draft took place this year, had Nabers going 6th to the Giants at number 6. But in his description of Nabers, he said he thought Nabers might be the best player in this draft. Number 1 player, just going number 6 because of what other teams would decide to do because of their needs. And after 3 weeks, would anyone disagree that Malik Nabers looks like the best player to come out of this draft? I don't think so.
I don't know why anyone would. Tony, let's talk about Daniel Jones. All right, let's talk about Jones. We'll stay on the offense for a while. Jones was tremendous in the first half yesterday, and and the folks at Big Blue View know that I went back and forth on whether to give him kudos or whether to give him a Quilly, which is in between, for the game. And I chose the Quilly, but Jones didn't do anything quote unquote wrong yesterday. 17 out of 19 in the first half. There, and yes, Malik Nabers is making him look better. And, part of that is Malik Nabers, and part of that is Daniel Jones understanding how good Malik Nabers is, and understanding simply that he can throw balls to Malik Nabers that he couldn't throw or can't throw to other receivers. But to me, Jones missed a couple throws in the second half. He missed a deep ball. He maybe missed a third down throw to Wan'Dale Robinson, but he had the interception that was negated by the roughing the passer penalty. Although I would love to be a fly on the wall in the Giants offensive room when they watch the tape for that, because I would love to know if that is a bad throw by Jones or if rookie tight end Theo Johnson was not in the right place. I just don't know.
Yeah, it looked to me like he was just standing there waiting for the ball and not making a move toward the ball. And
Right.
when I saw it real time, I said, "What are you doing, Theo?"
Yeah. I wondered if
looking at it rather than going for it. Yeah.
The way Jones threw the ball, it looked like he was throwing it to a spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not where Theo Johnson was. But again, I don't know, but again, it's a throw that the Giants got away with. It's a play that they got away with. Whether it's Jones' fault or Johnson's fault or some combination. But Daniel Jones was fine. He was fine yesterday, and he was fine for the second week in a row. And it would be nice if he would hit one of those deep balls. At least the Giants are taking that shot. And the only thing I will say in Jones' defense on the deep balls is I'd rather have that deep ball get overthrown than underthrown.
Yeah.
Because underthrown, into coverage where it might get bounced around and picked off. But the one to Nabers was the oh man, that one they should have had.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but I
we
thought
saw the underthrown version in the exhibition game in Houston, where he got
Right.
intercepted on an underthrown deep ball, and
Right.
that's been his history is to slightly underthrow deep balls, and so you get the impression that he's trying to compensate for that, and he's overcompensating because he did it last week in Washington as well a couple of times, and so this is now 2 weeks in a row we're seeing him do it. So if they can ever get that timing down on those deep shots, then that just opens all kinds of possibilities for that offense.
Oh yeah, the thing is, Tony, as we transition away from specifically Jones a little bit, the Giants, Brian Daboll called a tremendous game on Sunday. I thought, the first half, 3 touchdowns. Second half, they didn't score, but to me, it wasn't the play calling. It wasn't that they were conservative. It wasn't that they went into a shell. Devin Singletary had another fumble. Daniel Jones missed. That Daboll called the deep shot, back-to-back plays for Nabers. They went for the kill shot and didn't get it. They missed it. It was there, and Jones missed it. I'm watching this Giants offense thinking that you've got Malik Nabers, you've got Wan'Dale Robinson, who's very good. You've got an offensive line that is giving the quarterback a chance, giving the running backs a chance. There's life in this offense. This offense is developing an ability, and it's not going to be a top 10 offense, but it's going to be it's at the very least, it's an adequate, it's an adequate NFL offense. And I think that's a huge improvement for the Giants. There's just, you begin to see possibilities here.
Yeah. And I think they can do that next week, as long as next week in 3 days, actually, as long as they give him sufficient pass protection, because I think Dallas is vulnerable to the pass as well, and I think their interior defensive line is not what it used to be. So they can run on Dallas as well, and so I think there's a chance when he gets the protection that he can move the ball against many different defenses. I don't expect him to be able to do it against the best defenses. They did it pretty well yesterday against a good defense, but I don't think they're always going to be able to do it against a good defense. But certainly, they are not the wretched offense that they have been for most of the past 20 games or so.
No, and Tony, I almost fell down. They ran 2 quality screen passes on Sunday. When's the last time the Giants ran 2 quality screen passes in a game? When's the last time they ran 1?
So I don't know enough about football to answer my own question, but I always sit there watching those things, and I watch other games. As I say, how come other teams can always run these screen passes and get 10, 15, 20 yards out of them all the time? And every time the Giants try to run a screen pass, the blockers aren't there, and it gets blown up for no gain or something like that. And so, I saw that yesterday. I said, oh my God, a successful screen pass.
Yeah, crazy. Crazy. Definitely signs of life from the offense. Once again, people are going to gnash their teeth about Jalen Hyatt getting only 10 snaps. Giants took a a very predictable deep shot to Hyatt, I thought, early in the game. I think everybody saw that coming after all of the hullabaloo on Friday about the trade request that wasn't. But look, the reality of it is this: the Giants are playing, as we talk about them developing this offense, they're playing a lot of heavy personnel. Okay, they're playing a lot of heavy personnel. Chris Manhertz, the blocking tight end, is playing a lot of snaps. They're occasionally running a fullback into the game in Jakob Johnson. That's just the personality that they're developing. 3 wides, and 3 wides a lot of times, and Jalen Hyatt is the 4th wide receiver. It's not that the Giants are being stupid and not playing Hyatt because they don't like him, or because they don't want to develop him, or because they don't think he's a good player. They know what he is. But the reality of it is, Darius Slayton has been the Giants' best wide receiver 4 out of the last 5 years. You have Malik Nabers now, which you haven't had a guy like that. Malik Nabers is going to play every snap. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to play every snap when the Giants have a slot receiver on the field. He's very good at it. He's the best slot receiver the Giants have. That means that if you've got 3 wides or 2 wides, your choice is Darius Slayton or Jalen Hyatt, unless you've got a special play dialed up or whatever. But Darius Slayton is a better player than Jalen Hyatt right now. He's been a favorite target of Daniel Jones for years. He's a comfortable target for Jones. Jones trusts him. And Darius Slayton's going to play more than Jalen Hyatt, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I do think that the Giants need to start utilizing their wide receiver 2 position more, whoever it is, whether it's Slayton or Hyatt out there, because they're going so much to Nabers that you have to think that teams are going to adjust to that and try to come up with creative ways to limit his ability to get the ball. I'm not sure what those ways are, but I mean, I'm sure he's going to start seeing a lot of double coverage and bracket coverage, the way teams like to do it to Justin Jefferson and things like that. And so there's going to come a day when Jones is going to have to depend on that second wide receiver more than he has through those first 3 games. And so the question is how they can actually get the production, because it's not as if Slayton was seeing the ball a lot either.
No, it's not. But I think, the reality of it is, right now, Darius Slayton is a more complete player than Jalen Hyatt is. He's a guy who Jones trusts. He's a guy who can make plays. Now, you talk about Slayton, you talk about Hyatt, you talk about the trade deadline. It's entirely possible that the Giants find more snaps for Jalen Hyatt the second half of the year by trading Darius Slayton at the deadline. Slayton, to me, I wrote this the other day. He's the player on the roster who probably brings them the best trade return. Now, that trade return is still probably a day 3 pick of some sort, but he probably brings them the best trade return, and he's probably not going to be a Giant next year. So that one makes sense to me if the Giants want to do that. But right now, I can't criticize Brian Daboll for playing Darius Slayton.
Yeah. I just like to see them diversify things a little bit more on the offense going forward, so that because it's becoming fairly predictable. And of course, it's great when you have someone who's as capable as Nabers is, but I'd like to see them diversify the offense a little bit more.
How many targets did he get yesterday, Tony? 10, 11?
Yeah, I want to say 11 maybe. And I think he caught something like 6.
He got 12. He got 12 targets.
Okay.
He got 12 targets yesterday. You're right. They're going to need to diversify. They threw the ball. I think Wan'Dale Robinson had 5 catches yesterday. And you are going to see teams. We've already seen some bracket coverage of Nabers in the second half yesterday. We saw Denzel Ward, Cleveland's best corner, travel with Nabers. You're going to see teams try to do that, but that's why, Darius Slayton is a good player. Robinson's a good player. Hyatt will make an impact at some point. Would be nice to see Theo Johnson settle in and start to catch some balls. But I have the impression that Theo Johnson is kind of struggling to settle in as an NFL player at this point. But I know just the fact that the Giants are playing him so much tells me what they think of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I worry about that a little bit because I feel like they're getting very little out of the tight end position. And a couple of years ago, they were getting quite a bit out of Daniel Bellinger when he was a rookie, and he was on the field yesterday early in the third quarter and caught a pass, I think, for a first down. And I said, "Oh, I wonder whether they're sitting Theo Johnson down for the second half because I feel like Theo Johnson has had a very poor 3-game start to his NFL career in general, and I thought maybe they were sitting him down for Bellinger, but as soon as I said that, Theo Johnson was back in the game. So, apparently they want to stick with Theo Johnson. And obviously he's got a lot of talent, a lot of potential there. The question is, can he unlock it and how long is it going to take for him to do that? Because right now they're just not getting that much from that position the way many other teams get from their tight ends.
Bellinger played, I'm looking at it right now, Tony. Bellinger played 26 snaps. And just as an indication, we talked about the Giants leaning into that heavy personnel. And this is the choice that they've made about how they want to play. And Theo Johnson played 58 snaps, which is 81%. Chris Manhertz played 27 snaps and Daniel Bellinger played 26, which means the Giants had 2 tight ends on the field quite a bit.
Right. Yeah, I just went through the snap counts before I got on here, and so there were 72 offensive plays, if I remember correctly, and summing it all up, 111 tight end snaps. So that's telling you that there were only almost 40 snaps where they had 2 tight ends on the field.
Yeah. So it's they're telling you that's how they want to play. They want to play with the 2 tight ends. The 2 tight ends help the run game. Look at a couple of the clips that Nick Filato posted on X this morning, and you can see how Chris Manhertz helps the pass protection. You're sacrificing a receiver at times, but that right now is how they're choosing to play. Maybe 2 years ago, as the Giants offense evolved, it was very, very run oriented. It was very much a little bit like it is now, without Malik Nabers, but it was the shorter stuff. That offense evolved as the season went along to where Daniel Jones was throwing the ball more, was throwing for more yardage. Maybe we'll see that as the season goes along, but it's clear right now that's the choice that the Giants have made.
Yeah, and I wonder whether that's a response to what's now becoming the kind of prevalent too high safety look that you're seeing in NFL defenses, because scoring and passing yards and things like that, I believe, are down around the league. And you started to see this a year ago also, and I wonder whether that's part of their strategy to deal with some of those coverages, to just be not quite so freewheeling in the passing game, but to try to establish the run a little bit more, and to go with shorter intermediate patterns, rather than a lot of deep routes and a lot of 1-1 personnel. I don't know, what their thinking is in doing it.
But you can see that it's clear that that's the pattern that they've established. By the way, Tony, before we move off the offense, with Miles Garrett is so good. With two bad feet. I mean, he was carted out of the stadium last night because he couldn't walk. But with two bad feet, he had a game where he made Andrew Thomas, who is one of the best pass blocking left tackles in the NFL, if not the best pure pass blocking tackle in the league. He had his way for the most part with Andrew Thomas last night. Although to Andrew Thomas's credit, the one thing Andrew Thomas did manage to do is keep Garrett from compiling sacks.
Yeah.
But Myles Garrett was in the backfield all day, and just hats off to that guy, because to do that, lining up play after play against Andrew Thomas, is something special.
Yeah. Now I read a little bit here and there that Andrew Thomas might have been gone into the game injured yesterday as well, but I haven't actually seen a confirmation of that. But that having been said, as you said, Garrett was hurting, and I think that was the worst game I've seen Andrew Thomas play since his rookie year, when he had all kinds of problems. And so I'm with you 100%. Myles Garrett just tremendously impressed me. Not that I needed to be impressed. I mean, I think everybody thinks he's the best edge defender in the NFL, but I thought, wow, I can't believe what he's doing.
I could have done without being impressed, and Daniel Jones probably could have done without that too. Tony, let's talk about the defense. Honestly, all sorts of props to defensive coordinator Shane Bowen yesterday. And also all sorts of props when you realize I was reading this morning. I don't travel with the team, so I wasn't in the locker room, last night after the game. But some of the reporters who were said that the defensive players said that it really wasn't necessarily the game plan to blitz the way that the Giants did. It goes against Shane Bowen's normal tendency. It also goes against, it apparently went against what they had intended to do going into the game. But they realized Dexter Lawrence was getting doubled. Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns were getting chipped. And Bowen just decided if they were going to spend that much time and energy with a beat-up offensive line or a makeshift offensive line, he just decided that he was just going to send everybody. And he did. And, 8 sacks, 17 quarterback hits, just major props to Shane Bowen for being willing to go against his tendencies and to do what he did.
Yeah, I think I read that they blitzed on 57% of the plays yesterday, which is, those are Wink Martindale numbers, right? And and I think the most important thing in what you just said there is his willingness to adapt. And so I think the problem with Wink Martindale is that he has his philosophy of how to play defense, and he more or less does that almost all the time. And so I like a defensive coordinator who's somewhat unpredictable. I mean, and I don't know that it's Shane Bowen's philosophy to be unpredictable, but as you say, at least he was open-minded enough to say to himself, what we're doing hasn't been working very much. I mean, after last week, you have to question, right?
Right.
You can't just say, "Oh, well, our guys have to do better." I mean, you do want your guys to do better, but if the way you're running the defense isn't producing results with the personnel you have, then you have to say, "Well, what can I do to make things different?" So I was amazed as I was watching yesterday, seeing all the pressure that they were bringing on so many plays. And the blitz. I mean, as a fan, you love the blitz because it really makes the play exciting to see everybody coming. But actually, a good quarterback can just undress a team's defense when they blitz, and you can't do that with everyone. But yesterday, I thought it was a great strategy for them to use.
No, but you recognize the offensive line you're playing against. You recognize the quarterback that you're playing against, and again, to Bowen's credit, and look, I don't know how good a defensive coordinator Shane Bowen is going to turn out to be. All right, we're talking specifically about yesterday. Um, Shane Bowen said last week during his weekly presser that he was unhappy with himself. He was unhappy with himself for not adjusting in game to what he saw with Jaden Daniels. He was unhappy with himself for not spying Jaden Daniels more, and basically said that he needed to be better.
Mhm.
Now, the problem with NFL coaches saying all that stuff is they always talk about, I need to be better. We need to clean this up. We need to be flexible. We need to be able to do this. We need to be able to do that. Most of the time, what you see from these guys is the same thing next week that you saw last week. Because they are what they are. But I give Shane Bowen credit for changing his philosophy and, for, as the players said, for being willing to do that on the fly in game. So, all kinds of props to Bowen. I mean, some guys came through big yesterday. Brian Burns came through big with the strip sack. Kayvon Thibodeau with a huge play. What was that on 3rd and 1, blasting into the backfield? Dexter Lawrence talked about being ticked off last week about losing, and the way that a great player, the way that a leader should, he went and did something about it Sunday. So, props to a lot of the Giants' best players for stepping up when they were needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to me, I think what you want from both your defensive and offensive coordinators is unpredictability, right? You know the teams are going to look at your tape and try to plan for you. And so if you're putting the same thing on tape every week, then good teams will figure out how to come up with a way to beat it, unless they have absolutely no talent on their own team. And so you can't go into every game with the same game plan. And once you see what the other team is doing, you can't just stick with a game plan if it's not working. And so I think you need that flexibility to do different things in different games as different circumstances arise. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that he's open-minded enough to do that. We'll see going forward. I don't know that the same type of game plan is going to work against Dak Prescott that it would against Deshaun Watson. But for the 1 week at least, I thought it was a great thing to use, and something that I imagine Cleveland did not see coming at all.
No, they didn't. I think Deshaun Watson, said after the game that they saw a lot of things from the Giants in game that they hadn't seen on film, that they didn't expect. So again, Cleveland didn't really know what was hitting them, as the game was going on. So, props to Bowen for all of that. There are obviously concerns still. This team's 1-2. Who knows how this season's going to work out? I mean, I look at Thursday as a massive opportunity. This is a Dallas team that's given up a lot of points the last 2 weeks. They lost 2 games at home, back-to-back games at home, which that doesn't happen to Dallas. They had that crazy comeback yesterday, but they were down 28-3, I think, at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, they were down 28-6. It was 21-3. But they look beatable, and yet, the Giants, there are still concerns. So what are your main concerns at this point when it comes to the Giants, Tony?
So on defense, my main concern, frankly, is the defensive back play, or the cornerback play, and in particular Deonte Banks. So you're talking about Dallas on Thursday. Well, somebody's got to cover CD Lamb, who I think is a better wide receiver than Amari Cooper, and a better wide receiver than, frankly, most of the receivers in the NFL. They've got to have a plan, I think, for dealing with CD Lamb. And the thing about Deonte Banks is that I think he's tracking the wide receivers that he's covering well enough. He's there on a lot of plays. He's close enough, but at the catch point, he's doing nothing, and I don't see him
Well,
getting his arms up trying to knock down a pass or do anything like that. He's more or less just kind of conceding the catch, and it's like, well, why are you going to follow the guy if you're not going to try to play the ball once it gets there?
Tony, I think when you talk about Banks and you talk about that, remember that the Giants traded up to what, 24th or 25th? They moved up one spot to get him in the draft.
Mm.
So he was a late first round pick. And I think that it's purely ball production that made him a late first round pick instead of a top 10 pick in the draft. So because he didn't have much ball production at Maryland. So that remains to be an issue. The other thing that bothers me is he's given up 2 touchdown passes this year on the identical route inside the 10-yard line on that slant pass. One was to Justin Jefferson and the one yesterday to Cooper. He wasn't even competitive on the one to Cooper yesterday. We wondered if Tay Banks was up to being, that guy one-on-one against the other team's best wide receivers. To this point, the answer has been no. I still think Tay Banks can be a good NFL player. I don't think he's a horrible cornerback. I just think that right now he's showing signs of not being that guy who you can put on the other team's, number one wide receiver. Unfortunately, what choice do the Giants have if they're going to go man?
Right.
Art Green off the practice squad was playing snaps yesterday because of some of the injuries that they have. And this is the problem with you still have a developing roster. You still have things that need to be fixed. And they're depending on Banks, and fingers crossed that he figures it out, because the first 3 weeks haven't been good for him.
Yeah, I say, and unfortunately, Thursday, to me, that's the thing that gives me the biggest concern Thursday night, because that Dallas will go to CD Lamb.
Go ahead, Tony. Finish your point.
And I don't see what the Giants' answer to that is if Banks can't cover him fairly well and at least can contest some plays. I mean, because I don't think the Giants can blitz as much as they did yesterday, because I think Dak Prescott can handle the blitz, and I think he'll kill them if they bring too many guys too often. I mean, you want to do it occasionally, but
absolutely the best quarterbacks, the best quarterbacks will make you pay for sending extra players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I say, well, how did the Giants stop that Dallas offense? I'm a little more optimistic that the Giants can move the ball against Dallas's defense, because the offensive line is better, and Dallas is not as strong at cornerback because of injuries as they were last year. And so I can imagine the Giants being able to move the ball against them on Thursday. It's how do they stop the Dallas offense? That is the big concern to me.
Yeah, I have special teams concerns too, Tony. I just do. As I wrote in Kudos and Wet Willies, can the Giants please get somebody else to return kickoffs other than Eric Gray? He lost that job last year for 2 reasons: ball security, and because even when he caught the ball, he couldn't go anywhere. He's a good hard runner as a running back, but as running backs go, he's slow.
Mm-hmm.
And what you need in that kickoff return is A, you need ball security. B, you need speed. He doesn't have either one. And, huge fumble yesterday. And it's obvious right now. Teams are kicking the ball to him on purpose. They're kicking the ball to him because they know he's not going to break it, and he's got that history of putting the ball on the ground.
Yeah.
The Giants have got to find a better option than Eric Gray as a kickoff returner, in my view. And the other thing is, I don't know if the Giants can do it on a short week, but after that horrible 48-yard kick by Greg Joseph, I would venture a guess that if this was a regular week, the Giants would have a different kicker on Sunday. They might have a different kicker on Thursday, but that was a high school miss by Greg Joseph in a huge spot, and it certainly doesn't breed any confidence that the Giants made the right choice.
Yeah. And I had forgotten until after the Giants signed him, but then I was reminded that Greg Joseph was the guy who kicked that, what was it, 62-yard field goal,
61-yarder. Yep.
61-yarder to beat the Giants in Minnesota in 2022 in the regular season, which was longer than he had ever made in his life. And so I mean, I think he's not a terrible kicker, but that was a terrible kick yesterday. That was an awful kick.
The bothersome thing was that one of the reasons he got let go was because he struggled really badly a year ago from outside 40 yards.
Yeah.
And that kick, he made his extra points, but that kick wasn't a professional kick. And it just, I don't know. I can't have any confidence that the guy can make a kick that you need him to make after having seen that. So fingers crossed that Graham Gano is back at some point, but because as Thomas McGahee, the former special teams coordinator, said a year ago, you really don't want to be riding the kicker train because it goes to very ugly places.
And and the bottom line, though, I think, is that next year the Giants need to be looking for a kicker. I mean, either in the draft or as undrafted free agent when the draft is over. I think they've gone. Graham Gano. I worry that at his age, it's like, we're having 2 years in a row with injuries, and you wonder, as good as he's been, is it time to move off that? And kickers, frankly, are not as good as they get older, and it happens to all kickers. You're even seeing Justin Tucker, the Ravens kicker, who is not kicking the way he has through most of his career, and you wonder that as these guys age, that there just comes a point at which they just are no longer as effective as they used to be. And I think I would love to see the Giants use either a late round pick or just sign a kicker as an undrafted free agent next year.
We shall see what happens, Tony. But the draft's a long way away, and fortunately, a win on Sunday, so we have a little bit more to talk about than the 2025 NFL draft. So the Giants have a little hope. They have a little something to look forward to on Thursday. The Eagles had to go and screw it up, though, by winning on Sunday, because I was kind of looking forward to all four NFC East teams being 1-2, and Thursday's game, having first place ramifications. It's like, yeah, they're 1-2, but that would have been cool. But still, it's nice to who knows where it's going to lead, but the victory and some of the things that happened in week 2, give you some things to feel good about with the Giants, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and the Giants have had so many seasons where they started off poorly and never recovered, and so to at least get off the schneid in the third game rather than waiting until they're halfway through the season. And with the schedule coming up, I don't know how many more opportunities there are for victories in the next few weeks. So you like seeing them get the wins where they can grab them.
Absolutely. All right, Tony, I think that's a good place for us to call it a show. Thanks to everyone who listened or watched live, and thanks as always And for the support, Giants fans, please stay safe out there. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.